we can very easily blur the lines between who we are and what we are, because both of those can be the same thing. What I am is a yoga teacher, meditation teacher. And that's why so many of you have tuned in to my channel time and time again, whether that's to gain a perspective of mindfulness, whether that's to practice yoga or meditation. It's brought you to me. But who I am is much more than just a yoga teacher. And I feel like this is probably a podcast, a video cast, a talk that I should have done at the start of my channel. But here we are, nonetheless. So thank you for joining me. My name is Nav. This is the YouTube channel Nirvana with Nav. You can also follow me on Instagram at that same handle. And I just want to share a little bit more about who I am and how I got here. Because I never had any intention of teaching yoga. Never had any intention of pursuing this path that I'm currently on. If I go back in time and maybe somehow meet who I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago and tell them who I've become, what I've now started to do with my life, I'd probably laugh at myself. I would have a very hard time believing that who I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago would turn into who I am today. But I think that's a really cool thing, is that you just never know. We're in 2025. Who I was 10 years ago was someone entering the last year of my university undergrad, completing my Bachelor of Commerce with a specialization in accounting. Who I was 5 years ago was a relatively successful corporate accountant. I managed about $60 million on a monthly basis with a team of individuals underneath me. And I was the youngest manager in my corporate company. And who I am today is a person that teaches yoga and meditation. Quite a 180, quite a different journey to pursue. But I'm very happy with where I am today. So how did I get to teaching yoga and meditation? Do I think everybody should do what I do, leave the corporate life and pursue the heart? One half of me says yes, do it. But it's also understanding that it's sometimes just a window of time that you have to take advantage of. I was very fortunate. I've been quite frugal my whole life, so I had saved up a lot of money. Don't have any debt. Don't have any mortgages to pay off, any outstanding loans. And so financially, I could make that decision of stepping away, although it was done in a very crazy time, towards the tail end of the pandemic, making a decision to leave something secure and stable. But why I chose to leave is probably the more important reason. I'm not bashing anything against accountants or the world of accounting. But the impetus that got me to leave, and it's just something that I can get into on another time. But my closest work friend and colleague at the time passed away from an aneurysm. Young, healthy, 44, 2 kids, no bad habits, nothing that would pinpoint and say that's the reason why this happened, other than workplace stress. That's what I feel in my heart. That's what I still feel to this day. That workplace stress is what caused whatever happened to happen. And maybe in the year prior to his passing, I had gotten a bit more into yoga and meditation. So pandemic time. I had practiced yoga in my early 20s. I'm turning 32 next week. Joined little studios here and there, did Groupons for 30 months or 30 days of unlimited yoga practices, hopped around from studio to studio, but it was still very much just for the physical aspect of it, of stretching. And I still remember some of my early experiences because they were in studios that had mirrors in them. I would fail, but I would try to outstretch the person next to me. And it just wasn't possible. Growing up in high school and later on in university, my athletic career was in wrestling. And my body carried a lot of tension from that sport. It still does. And I remember my mom, who is the original yogi in my family, trying to get me to practice some yoga in high school. And I remember just how stubborn I was. No, Mom, I'm a wrestler. I don't do yoga. How wrong I was. So yes, in my early 20s, maybe hopped through a few different studios in my local city, but nothing ever really stuck. Didn't really see the value in it other than just stretching in a very warm room. But then the pandemic came and all of my outlets, the gym, wrestling practices, all of these things got shuttered away. So here I was working at home, left to just deal with no outlet. So I was fortunate at least that I had a bicycle. So just about every single day, whether it was on my lunch break or after work, I would hop on my bike and go out for a ride. And then just to balance out all the activity I was doing on my bike, I would go on YouTube, search up yoga, and thankful that I found someone like Yoga with Adrian. And I just followed along with the stretches. Still at this point though, yoga was still just nothing more than stretching. Releasing tension out of the body, yes, but nothing was cluing me into the deeper aspects of the practice. And then about in the summer of 2020, I would say, got introduced to meditation. I'd been recommended meditation beforehand a few times from different people, but the message just never clicked. And so in the summer of 2020, I had a friend mention meditation to me once again. And this time around, something about his message clicked. So I gave it a shot. Downloaded the Headspace app, tried the first meditation, which is about maybe 3 or 5 minutes. And during that first meditation, there might have been a window of maybe 10 or 15 seconds, something clicked. Something clicked with the breath. That the breath that I was focusing on, that I was anchoring to during my meditation practice, is the same breath that this yoga teacher that I had been following online kept reminding me to check in with. And it's that same breath that we carry with us in our daily lives. The only challenge is that the vast majority of us have no conscious connection to breath. So day-to-day life, we have an unconscious relationship to the breath. At a very superficial level within a yoga practice, we might become aware of the breath, present to the breath. But then here I was in a guided meditation practice where I was asked to bring a bit more intention to the breath. And by very much withdrawing myself from the environment I was in. I was just in my room, but closing my eyes, slowing down and softening my body, taking a step back from the busyness in my mind. All of those actions to then center myself on my breath led me to a very simple discovery, but I think a very meaningful discovery. And even from that first point on of summer of 2020 into the next few years, I still meditated, and for a very long time, I had no idea still if I was doing it right. Some days would feel good, some days would feel not so good, some days felt easy, some days felt hard. And I truly believe it wasn't until the day that my colleague passed away that I really found that benefit, the meaning of having a meditation practice in my life. Reason being, in a world prior to meditation, prior to me being introduced to the practice, some of my coping mechanisms, some of my strategies to deal with stress, tension, and anxiety probably weren't the healthiest. I am an only child. And although I am forward-facing on YouTube and in public life, I still very much consider myself an introvert. So being an introverted only child, probably not the best solutions when it comes to dealing with stress, anxiety, tension. And so there is very much a reality that had I not had a foundation in meditation and mindfulness, that my ability to process the grief that I was going through at that time, the sorrow, the sadness, the heartbreak, could have really spiraled me out of control. But because of having a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice, I was able to work with my emotions in a much more healthier way. Not to say that the grief wasn't there, that I didn't feel sad, that I didn't cry or anything like that. Sometimes these are some of the misconceptions of meditation and mindfulness, that we end up shutting ourselves off from the world. We detach ourselves in a negative sense. But me going through that personal experience of dealing with loss, of grief, of sorrow, of sadness, also then illuminated to me just how much sorrow, sadness, grief there is in the world all around us. Especially nowadays with just how fast life moves, how much information is thrown at us, how much stimulation we have in our daily lives. We sometimes just forget. We forget who we are because we're so absorbed by what we are. Our societal roles, whether that's your job, whether that's your gender, whether that's your relationship status, these things sometimes get placed to the forefront, that we end up sacrificing. It comes at a cost of who we are at a deeper level. So especially over this summer and especially over this year, what I am, no doubt, is a yoga teacher. And even who I am is that yoga teacher. But as I've given more importance to that part of me, other things have slipped away. Simple things like my love for art. Some of you know I used to draw a lot. And it's been maybe a year since I've even picked up a pen or a pencil to doodle. And it's not that I'm here to try to make a living as an artist or anything of the sort, but it is still such a meaningful outlet, a meaningful way for me to connect to who I am, the things that make me happy, the things that make me feel at peace and at ease. And I guess all of this ties back into one of the reasons why I started this channel. I see how much suffering is around us physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. And a lot of us were just never taught how to deal with these issues. It's unfortunate, but we weren't really taught in school how to deal with tough emotions, how to process stress, anxiety, grief, loss, death. And these experiences of life are natural. They are a part of the living condition. And so for many of us, instead of learning to deal with them, we bury them, we repress them, we suppress them. We don't confront them. And when it comes to a yoga practice or a meditation practice or a mindfulness practice, we can start to strengthen our resolve. We can increase our sense of confidence to face some of these things head on in a very manageable way at that. On the yoga mat, you're left to deal with intense sensations in the body. Sometimes you're holding a posture for a very long time, you're stretching very deep, and so the body begins to make noise. In a meditation practice, you really work with the mind. You confront that monkey mind that just refuses to sit down with you. And as you strengthen your sense of practice on the mat, on the cushion, the hope is that the benefits of the practice aren't just limited to that experience, but that your ability to better deal with stress on the mat, to work with a more balanced mind on your cushion, these are all qualities that can then be translated into your daily life. And it sounds so abstract, no doubt, to say that all of this or a lot of this begins with connection to breath, but it's true. The breath holds so much power that we're just very much unconscious to. But if we can build that relationship day after day, 5 minutes at a time today, 5 minutes tomorrow, maybe 5 minutes will become 10 next week, next month, and you just keep building. Mindfulness practices are built on consistency. And no doubt some days are harder to work with than others. For me personally, it's been a very chaotic summer. My poor cat has had some health scares this summer. So no doubt that kind of baggage weighs me down mentally. It drains me emotionally. But we cannot forget to come back to ourselves, to our center. Because if we cannot process these things, if we let them stay within us, if we hold on to all of this baggage, physical, mental, emotional, then it will weigh us down. It will weigh down our mind, it will weigh down our heart, it will weigh down our spirit. And so my hope is that when you take part in one of my practices, yoga practice, meditation practice, or whether you just listen to me talk, that I can offer you a perspective that allows you to look at your life from a different point of view. And it's not that you have to agree with all that I say, even me, I'm still learning so much day after day, week after week. I've only been teaching yoga and meditation for 2.5 years. So I don't even know where I will be in a year's time from now, in 5 years, in 10 years. But I think the benefits of this practice are worth sharing with others out there. So as of today, I have about 224 subscribers, maybe 225. And I'm grateful for each and every one of you of sticking with me. You're probably hoping that I'd be more consistent with my videos, and me too. I wish so, I would be as well. So that's one thing I'm going to try my hardest to work on. But I appreciate each and every one of you for joining, for sticking through, for offering me your kind words of advice and your support. And I truly do hope that what I've been able to share through my practices, through my words, through my presence, has been able to provide you with some sort of benefit. So if this is the first video you've ever seen of me, or if this is one of the later videos, thank you for coming by to this channel. I truly do hope to continue growing this community, to see where we can take it. Because social media has that benefit of connection. And I hope that this tool of using YouTube to connect to you can provide me with that meaningful connection. So, thank you for listening to another one of my rambles. I don't know what to call the talk, but I just want to share a little bit more of who I am. From being an accountant, facing loss, feeling the benefits of yoga and meditation personally, and then pursuing the path of sharing those benefits with others who may also suffer. If you ever have any questions, comments, feedback, as always, leave them down below. If you're forgetting to like and subscribe, those buttons should also be somewhere down there. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Be well, be safe, take care, and I'll see you again for the next video.